If I may,
Oh, it's almost 6:15.
Now, okay.
think we should wait till 6:15?
I'm ready whenever you can.
I'm ready. I figured some people have to grab something to eat and after, but I won't take too long. You know, one of the, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Miguel Levario, and I'm the Democratic nominee for the United States Congress to represent Texas 19th Congressional District. I want to thank you all for coming out to this town hall. This is another town hall that we've hosted. We had one in Abilene about a week or so ago. We've had one in Lubbock last year. We've had several. This is one of many that we've had and that we're having all the way going to November. And it's important to us. I believe that, you know, these types of engagements, these types of interactions are the hallmark of not only our campaign, but of my tenure as your congressman. This is not going to be a telephone town hall where you can be muted and you're not going to have a voice. This is a face-to-face, be held accountable as your representative to where I have to face you for whatever issue or concern you may have, and that's important to me as your representative. So I'm glad you all made it out. Just to give you a little bit of background, so this was intended to be a small business town hall, but we can certainly talk about a variety of issues that you may have, so feel free to ask me about anything. I like to frame these town halls a little bit where I talk about maybe 5 minutes or so, and the rest is you. The rest is what you think I need to be informed about, what you want to let me know, and what I need to be aware, and so forth. So a little bit about where we're at in the campaign. We are fully staffed as a campaign. I have a couple of my staffers here. This is Cannon Roberts, who's my campaign manager, and Cable Wilkerson, who's our field coordinator. Some are busy with school and maybe out of town at the moment, but we're fully staffed with the downtown headquarters, that Hub City workspace where we've been for several months now, and we will be there till November. We've been getting out to the district. We have a number of events planned throughout this week and throughout the rest of the summer. There's no dead time for me. I'm still fully employed at Texas Tech, and I plan to use every free moment I have dedicated to the campaign, which my kids we're kind of disappointed there's no Disneyland this year, but for my pocketbook, it's actually a nice little relief. but we're certainly excited about meeting everybody here. As we've gone around the district, we've identified, you know, 3 major issues that just consistently come up. One, of course, is healthcare. People are very much concerned about what they're seeing and what they've already seen with the attacks on the Affordable Care Act and the resistance by the Republican Congress to improve on the Affordable Care Act or to get us into a better quality healthcare system. So what we've heard across the district is that people don't want their healthcare taken away. They want to see improvements, but a lot of people are getting on board about guaranteed healthcare for everyone. And that's the center of our campaign here, is how do we get guaranteed healthcare for everyone? And we think it's not only the moral thing to do, but it also is a fiscally responsible thing for us to do. Because our current system of privatized healthcare is certainly not fiscally responsible. And we know that. Another big issue that people are concerned about is the economy in general, but a couple of things within it is small businesses, is infrastructure. It's of course also, we've heard a lot about the farm bill and farmers and those insurances, and that's also very important. But it's also about the diversity of our economic system here. It's about supporting other types of farmers besides cotton farmers, our growing grape farmers. Did you all know that Brownfield, Texas is the leading producer of grapes in Texas? Texas is only second to California in the amount of wine that is produced in this country. Yeah, that shocked me too. I was like, I'm in the right place then, right? So that grape festival is coming up. So those of you who are wine drinkers, it's not to hop, skip, and a jump to Brownfield to go check out some good quality stuff. But it's also about, what we've seen a lot of people who are trying to stimulate and revitalize their local economies with either small businesses or trying to get good paying jobs out to these areas, including Lubbock. And that's what we want to support. We want to continue supporting that. Small business loans that are flexible, and they're also accommodating to people who are just starting from the very, very basic roots of building a business. So we want to also protect that, but what we need is that we need to keep our intellectual capital here. We have a great university at Texas Tech, and Lubbock Christian, and Abilene Christian, and Hardin-Simmons, and a number of others that produce a lot of quality workers. But what we need to do is find ways to keep them home. A lot of them do want to stay home. Now, a lot of them do also want to leave and, check out the other places of Chicago or New York, and that's fine. I did the same thing. But you know what? There's going to be a time where they have a calling to come back home. But we want to be able to provide opportunities for them to come back home. So I think supporting, whether it's small business loans that are backed by the federal government or even block grants that we can do to support individuals that are trying to not only go into a for-profit business, but maybe are trying to start up non-profit businesses that will benefit the community at large. So we want to keep that as a focus as well. And lastly, of course, is education. As I rattled off a number of universities, we also have a very good, vital primary and secondary education system, but needs support. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're not on the bandwagon of we need to intervene in our schools. No, we believe that the parents, the teachers, and the students know how their schools operate. What we want to do is have the federal government be a support apparatus for our schools, because a lot of our states, including Texas, are continuing to slash the budgets of our educational systems. And we need a federal government to be there to support and add the proper grants or proper support that they need, especially when it comes to our students and our teachers. And one of the things that I've promoted throughout this campaign is supporting and expanding loan forgiveness programs for our teachers. The reason I mention that, as many of you are aware of, there is a student loan crisis that we're right in the middle of. It's a $1 billion crisis, and a lot of our students are graduating with tens of thousands of dollars of debt, but going into professions that simply cannot pay them the salaries to have them pay their rent, mortgage, have a car, live a basic life on top of their student loans. But what we're also having a problem here in this district is our teacher turnover. And I always give the example of Seminole. Seminole, Texas is just southwest of here. They just built a beautiful, beautiful high school about a few years ago. They can't keep a teacher there longer than 1.5 years. And a large part is not because the teachers are like, oh, I don't like Seminole. It's because the salaries are simply not competitive. And Texas is not necessarily jumping on, let's improve those salaries for our teachers. So this is where the federal government comes in and say, okay, Seminole, you can't get answers from your state. What about you applying for these grants that we can give you so you can apply it to teacher salaries so you become competitive and you can keep your teachers there. On top of that, if teachers can stay there in these rural district or underserved areas, say you're there for 3 years, we'll knock off 30% of your student loan debt. If you're there for longer, we can maybe look at cutting even more percentages so that they're even more incentivized to stick it out there. I'm a beneficiary of student loans, and that's a big reason why I came to Lubbock. I had other opportunities, but coming here, it allowed me an opportunity to see my loan be cut significantly than it is now. I still pay for it, but not as much as I used to before. So those are the 3 areas that we've seen, and of course that we're committed to. And as I was talking to somebody earlier, is like, we need, what we're looking at is healthcare. That's one of the biggest issues that people have. So again, I don't want to be just talking to you. I like to look at this town hall as I need to be listening to all of you, and that's what I want to get from you. So any questions, comments, concerns? And if you like, I might sit down if that's, I'm a little tall, so it's a little.
So my comment would be, because I like getting out in the community, working with people, especially when it's coming voting time. I got a witness there. The only thing that can get out and let people know more about what's going on, have information to hand to people, and I don't mind taking some of your brochures and putting them out in my neighborhood.
Yes, ma'am, please
and
do.
your pens. I can do that.
What we've done, and I'm glad you mentioned that, we received some really sound advice from several people talking about information, as you mentioned. One of the things that we're seeing, and it's throughout the district, it's not just one particular place, but it's the fact that many people are not aware of their voting rights. Some people feel like, hey, when I was 18, I was a minor in possession and I got arrested, I can't vote. And there's a lot of things that happen in people's lives that they are told the wrong information, and they're led to believe I can't vote anymore. Or for those that are on a slightly more serious end that maybe did serve some time, but they've been able to serve their time, serve their probation, they're done paying their debt to society, they're eligible to vote. But a lot of them believe they can't, that's already been taken away from them permanently. So we have drafted a information sheet that we're passing out as we go block walking to everybody, because it's not just one particular area or another, it's everybody who's just kind of not informed about what their rights are, or the simple fact that you got to register by October 9, or else you're not going to be able to vote in this year's election. So all kinds of information like that we're wanting people to be aware of, and that's one thing that we can do. Do you have other ideas of some other information that maybe we should?
Well, I know I got my letter from they're one of them already, Legal Women Voters, and I know they're getting ready to get out there and push for the voter registration and get people in. And many years ago, when I was out there doing voter registration, when I found out about people that had been in prison and they were out at survey time, and I didn't think they could vote. And one young man came up and he was talking to another young man. He said, "Oh, I can't vote because I've been in prison." He said, "Oh, yes, you can." And then I talked to him and he said, "Because I can." And he showed me his voter registration card. And I said, "Oh, I can get to work now." So I know several people that has been in prison, is out, and they are able to vote. Now we just got to push these young people to go vote.
Yes, ma'am, you're right.
Right, sweet.
Well, we were in Brownfield doing a voter registration several months ago, and we didn't get a lot of people registered, but the one gentleman that did was a gentleman who thought that same thing. He says, "Oh man, I can't. I served time." And I said, "Well, sir, are you done serving your?" He goes, "Yes, I'm done with everything." I said, "You can vote." And ironically, Texas has pretty liberal laws when it comes to that, because there are other states that are far more restrictive. But in Texas, they simply have to just re-register. That's all. So it's a really interesting kind of dynamic that we have a state that's also trying very much to suppress voter rights. But in this particular case, they've been very flexible when it comes to restoring that right for individuals who have been caught up in the legal system. So what are some of the major issues that are bothering you, or what you're seeing right now, or that you want from your representative? Is there anything in particular that... Yes, ma'am.
I am a foster grandparent, and I love that program that's there, because it opened up many doors for 55 and up and disabled, to go into the schools. I know when I lived in Austin, they already had it there, and Lubbock, I think this is the second year that they've had it, and it's a good program for...
Would you mind describing it a little bit to me? I've never heard the foster grandparent program.
Well, I'm a foster grandparent, and they want 55 and up, and a lot of them have been in the state school a long time, 15, 20 years, and a lot of them are still out there, but they're getting older, and so they want to recruit much younger people, not so that, you don't, to deal with our children, because it's much needed in the schools. I work at the PIA, for the intervention, and I chose to work over there because it's dealing with children, bad behaviors, and to get them to turn around and get back on track and get into their regular schools. And the children, they really need it, because a lot of them don't have parents, they're locked up or whatever the case may be, and they just need to know that somebody is there for them. And I enjoy it, I really do. And I don't know, they were saying that they was trying to cut that out. So I'm hoping that...
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I remember last year one of the big controversies coming out of the White House was they're going to slash Meals on Wheels and a number of other programs similar to foster care or stuff like that. And it boggled my mind, because they kept talking about investing in America and investing. Well, that's investing in our people, right? In with a foster program or adoption programs or after school programs, Meals on Wheels, those are investments we're making into our communities. And the other side doesn't see that way. They see those types of programs as takers, right? What they look at is like, no, we want to make the economically established even more successful and profitable. And I'm not against that by any means. I mean, we want people to make money and, and make a living and what have you, but I don't see how you can do that if you're just investing, if that's a word, maybe I've pulled the bushes in there, I mean, I'm not a word, but if you're not investing in your people. And that's one of the core characteristics of this campaign, is that there's no private without public, and vice versa. We need to help each other out. I was just talking just earlier, where there's a big disconnection between my opponent and our platform, because he was, and I got this from a Facebook message just today. It was a woman who has been struggling to get the attention from her leadership or representatives about rural healthcare, because they just closed another clinic out in the eastern part of our district near Anson, Texas. Some of you have heard of like Littlefield, who are cutting, they're not even delivering babies anymore. So it's making those types of services more difficult to access, because now they have to drive into Lubbock if they're in the middle of labor or whatever it may be. Well, she said that she contacted my opponent's office and they told her, I'm sorry, but that's how capitalism works. If there's not enough patients, there's not enough money. And I was like, this is the problem when you have for-profit healthcare. It does not become a moral obligation on your end. It becomes, how much money can I make off of this patient? If I can't, then that's it. And it's the same way. It's like when they look at these types of programs, whether it's foster care or Meals on Wheels, it's that, and they did this report when Trump did his first budget proposal. They said Meals on Wheels is not yielding us the right dividends to make this profitable. It's like, it's not a for-profit. You're feeding your elderly community. It's a matter of goodwill and supporting your community and your neighbors. Who may not, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It says volunteer, but you get paid, and it's like $2.98. Okay, when I started, when I got into the program, I should have brought a flyer, but I didn't understand how it was, we went to orientation and everything, so I seen on there, first it's $200, $400. They got vacation, you got public benefits. And so I asked her, I said, well, what would it take for me to make this? I said, because I need this $400, I need a car. This year, I bought a car.
Nice.
I got a brand new car.
Nice.
And it's from the money that I got from Australia, and it's tax-free. They don't interrupt your benefits, which is good.
Yes.
Because you need all of it. But I just really have gotten a great deal out of it, and you really have to be that person. You can't say, well, because a lot of my friends, I said, well, you only do, no, girl, that's 98 cents, $2.98, I can't make no money.
Yeah.
I said, well, you don't look at it for the money.
Yeah.
You look at it, what you're going to do for somebody, and what it's going to pay you in return. And it's been like I said, a blessing.
Yes.
And
And I'm glad you shared that, because that's, it's always those types of programs, it seems like anyway, that the other side is wanting to cut. And look at what it's done not only for you, but I can't imagine the huge benefits done for the children that you've taken care of. Which goes beyond the monetary aspect of it. And that's what I'm saying, is that with my platform and with me serving as your representative, I do believe in investing in our country, but it's investing in people like you who are saying, I want to serve my fellow neighbor. I want to help somebody else. And that's always been the mantra of my campaign since the very beginning. This is not for me to seek title, to seek anything else. This is a service to my community that I want to do, because I was brought up that way, from my parents to my mentors to everybody else, that everything I do should be a service to my community. Whether it's writing, at the university, and obviously in this particular case. And that's why we don't have PACs, we don't have corporate money. It's powered by everything. I don't mean to go on a bit of a tangent, but the idea is that, no, I do this not because of, any recognition. No, we do it because I believe in my community. I've adopted Lubbock as my hometown. My kids were born here. This is our home, and all of you are my neighbors. And it's like, hey,
we have 3 ladies that's in the organization that we are in, that's in the schools, that they took on those jobs. And it ain't no money, and like she said, but they love it. And one of the good things about one of the ladies, she's a minister, is in one of the programs, and she gets to teach the kids about the Bible. And she said now every evening there's more kids been coming, because she teach them things about the Bible and how to take care of themselves and how to help their parents and what God is all about. And the school told her that was okay, and they love it. She was just telling me yesterday at church and mentioning it at church how her little group afternoon has really grown. So we got 3 of them that I know is in our group, the legal client council group, that is doing that. And they seem to really love it. And don't talk about the money, because I know they don't make none, but it's what they are doing to help the kids.
But we need to do that, though.
Parents. So when they go home and tell their parents what they have learned, it might interest their parents to start coming and see. Parents need to go see what's going on.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
it gives our kids something to do after school instead of doing whatever. It's an after-school program that they have.
It's just the dividends that we can get from it goes far beyond what the immediate.
Kids involved, and you're giving them something good to be doing after school, and they're going home to a home where their parents are working, so there's nobody home, and it's a good thing. Yeah, no, those are. I work in Lubbock ISD, and I know some of the elementaries have it. It's wonderful. These churches come in and do it as an after-school program.
They love it. And then on Thursdays, when I work over there, Pastor Brooks, he teaches on Thursdays. And so he gave me the class. He said, Miss Jackson, it's you of what these people need, because I grew up here. I didn't finish school, so some of the girls and the guys too, they didn't know about somebody is there to care for you. This school is not just for say the bad kids, they call them.
Yeah,
they're not bad. They just need some love.
Yeah,
they
some love.
They need is love.
The foster grandparent is put in here for us. So now they call me grandma. I'll be in the store and grandma, I'm like, ooh. But and so and that's when on Thursdays is when the parents, grandparents, whoever their guardian is, they come in and we can interact then. We know what everybody gets to talk and say, well, I feel like this, and why are you being like this towards your grandparents or your mother or whoever is raising you? They get to put their input in. And before the school year was out, we had a lot of them that was getting out of there and saying, we're not coming back. I said, well, I want you to come back and see me, but not under these conditions. And it is. It's need to be open so the parents can come and interact. And I tell them all the time on Thursday, I said, now don't just come in here today and then just come back next week because your child is getting to get out of here faster by you coming. You need to do this all the time at his other school. Keep going and making sure that they know that you're there for them. We might not have a lot of money and all that. It don't take money. I'm a mother of 6.
Wow.
And I had to raise my children. They had fathers, but they wasn't there. And they just loved me because I was there.
Yeah.
They said, we didn't know we was poor. I said, well, you was.
That's and I love that because that's one of the things that people ask me is like, well, how did you do it or whatever, or being able to do what you've done, because we grew up very humbly too, and back in Paso. And I was like, well, the biggest probably difference is that my parents were there. It doesn't even turn me because there are 2 of them. It's just that I was fortunate to have 2 of them. But sometimes you just need one person just to be there for you. That's it. And and that's one thing about these programs that, like you were saying, it's not just the kids, but then they go and tell their parents, or they tell an aunt and uncle, or they tell a cousin. It can go far beyond than we imagine, just the immediate. So yeah, we're certainly. That's again, like I said, we want to protect those types of programs because it seems like those types of programs are always on the chopping block when they're trying to give tax cuts to millionaires. But let's go ahead and cut these out. So yeah, I think there's somebody else right now.
I have a question.
Now, I just want to say, and I know most of everybody here, but I really applaud you for running for Congress.
Thank you, Bucky.
Yes.
Because we need,
Yeah.
we need to sit
Thank you.
kind of like two things. Rose been here, Miss White been here a long, long time. We've been involved, Mr. Baker's been involved for a long, long time. It seems that everything that we've built up, man, is being torn apart right now. But it's nobody's fault but ours.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nobody's fault but ours, but we're here to defend your candidacy and to win for us. I go to United Supermarket, Walmart, all the time, probably twice a day. I have 16 grandchildren, 5 grandchildren. But it's just kind of like what Obama said last week. Stop complaining, do something about it. And you see the Supreme Court, and the awful displacement of those immigrant children. I mean, that out of chair, anybody's hard enough. But it's unfortunate that we live in a country where there's people that really don't care about it. But we're here to help you, yes, I'm here. But I want to tell y'all, it's time, now's the time to go out there and get your neighbor, get 10 people, get 20 people and say, let's do it.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do
We
it.
can.
You know,
And one more thing, I ask people, they complain all the time, I say, how many times have you called your congressman up? There.
There you go.
Well, he got an earful 2 weeks ago from me, and I urge people to call him up, because he ain't going to respond. But it's a shame what's going on, it's our fault, we need to go out there and get more people to the polls.
You're right, we're building momentum. You're right, Lloyd. I appreciate you saying that, and we're building momentum. I don't know if any of you heard, but in the primary in March, we had in the Democratic side, we had almost a 49% voter increase in our Democratic primary. We only had one contested race, so that says a lot. And this is the big one: Taylor County, Abilene. We didn't have a single contested race, 106% voter increase. And those are two biggest counties of our district. Now there are the Gaines County where in the primary, actually in the runoff it was abysmally low, but it's a runoff. I think a lot of people are having voter fatigue by then and so forth. But what we need right now is there's no more local elections, there's no more runoffs or primaries. We're aiming straight for November. And then people are constantly asking me, what are you going to do to get that voter turnout? I was like, you know what, I don't have the magic wand. If I did, I would have quit my job at Texas Tech and been some kind of consultant and made a lot more money doing that. But what I do know is that we have never put candidates in front of them either, on our side. We have had a few, but nothing was really serious. And this is a serious campaign. We've been out there as much as we possibly can. I'm not campaigning full-time because I can't afford to. You know, nobody gave me a special position with a 6-figure salary so I can be a rural advocate. You guys will know that joke if you know my opponent's background. But what I'm saying is that what we're doing is that we're going from people, we've been, you know, East Lubbock, North Lubbock, West Lubbock, we block walked in South Lubbock just on Saturday, and we've been in Abilene more times than I can count. And I really take credit for that 106% increase because we put in the work there. We have a field coordinator down there. So I said, all I can do is say, hey, I'm here and I'm for real, and this is for real. And we get a good response. People are eager. You just have to go out and meet them and do that work, and we're doing it. So I think that we have a lot of chance, but if you're saying, Bubba, it is the time now that when we keep telling you on the go out to vote drives, bring in a friend, that's for real. Bring 5 friends, you know, and if it's not friends, bring your cousins and your aunts or whomever. You know, I'm sure as heck, I got a cousin who's moved to Lubbock, and she just got back and she told me, I haven't registered here in Lubbock, and I was like, are you kidding me? So I have my folder in my car, and I'm gonna go register after this and say, you're not getting away with this, you know, we gotta get you here, and I'm gonna drag you out to the polls, and we'll take our kids with you, but you know, we have to do that. I think we have a really, really good shot. We really do.
Along those lines, Miguel, we have racial, ethnic, economic divisions of all kinds in this whole district. What are some of the key points that we can share with potential voters that would differentiate you from Jody, and we can prove to potential voters that you're going to be a congressman for all the people, for all of this district, as opposed to what we give.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think there's a few things. Number one, I'm not a politician. This is my first time running for public office. And I think that bodes well for me, because my opponent, although this is his first time holding public office, his entire professional career has been a political handout. If you research his background, every position he's had, including his position at Tech, was a political handout given to him. So he is a politician. So that in itself, and he's gained, he's got money from all these PACs and all these types of organizations that are running contrary to our interests here. Right? I mean, one particular quarter, his biggest contributor was a sugar company. Do you produce sugar here? Right? And the NRA and those sorts of things. That's what he's answering to. He's answering to his party, not to you. How many town halls has he had?
Telephone is all he had.
Telephone is all he has, because he can mute you. He can mute you.
Yes.
He's afraid of what we're doing right here.
Yes.
I'm not afraid, because you know what? I have to answer to all of you. I'm held accountable to all of you. And if I make a decision that may not go over well, I have to have the guts. If I'm going to run for this position, I got to have the guts to say, this is why I voted this way. And if you're going to say we didn't like it, then I got to take that in. He's afraid to do that. That can go public. Hold the town hall. He had one town hall in Lubbock back in October on a Monday at 12 p.m. Wow, that's really accessible, right? Well, I look at Beto O'Rourke, for example, as a model. He's been a good mentor of mine since I started running. Beto O'Rourke has at least one town hall every month in his own district. In fact, he has usually more than that. He is so accessible that when he is still the congressman of El Paso, but now he's running for Senate, obviously. He would hold town halls on the city bus. So if you couldn't make it after dinner, if you couldn't make it at breakfast time, if you couldn't make it at lunchtime, he went on the city bus and rode several routes and just hung out there to get at people who were going wherever they were going. To me, that's an example of what one representative should be, and that's the example that I'm following now, and as your congressman will be continuing. Because you need to know who your congressman is. We were in Big Spring, and we were at an event, and most people didn't even name Jody Arrington. They were naming Nagelbauer as their representative. I was like, okay, I'm not going to correct you. That's Jody's job, not mine. And I'm saying, most of them are saying that's Nagelbauer's seat that you're going for. I was like, sure, whatever. That's how they call him the phantom congressman, this and that, because he only has select meetings with certain people. He won't do this. And that boggles my mind. So one of the things is that I am actually reaching out to the people. While Jody hides, we're in front of people. We're not going to mute you when we're face to face, right? And I think the other thing is that, this is, like I said, his trajectory has always been, what is he going to get out of it in his own political trajectory? Like I said, his whole career has been a political handout. I told you all, I'm not here for the title, I'm not here for anything. I love my job at Texas Tech. That is my dream job, to be a professor. This is an act to serve my community, and I'm glad to do it. This is something, an honor. Because of the stuff that Ms. White, Bubba, Emilio, and several of you all have done before me, that allows me to be in this position. And I owe that to all of you who have been here longer than I have in Lubbock. I need to put my best foot forward to serve my community. And that's where it is. The focus is on us. It's not on special interests. Yes, Brian.
In 2012, when the mayor tried to close the health department, saying that we could just outsource it to the state health department, it wouldn't be a big deal. That if I could offer you some advice there, it was bringing it down to a level to where people can understand it, so that we sit there and we said, okay, if you do away with the health department, we'll be the largest municipality in the United States that doesn't have a health department. Yeah. And then what I found is we talked to people, they really didn't know what the health department did. They thought it was some sort of low-income medical clinic, when really what it does is it does surveillance of outbreaks of disease, sexually transmitted disease, and then immunizations. And on the immunizations, I think that one thing that was interesting was the extent to which they said, well, you can just go to your family doctor and get your DBT boosters and everything else. But the reality is, I mean, I'm in practice with 2 family doctors, and they refer everybody to the health clinic because they can't afford to keep those immunizations in stock. And what was really interesting in that whole effort was we banded with the County Medical Society, and we got 6,000 signatures on an online petition that forced the mayor and the city council to vote 7-0 to keep the health department. And so I think it was a unifying issue. So again, one of the things I think that sometimes gets lost is as much as Democrats are labeled as sort of the tax and spend, it's like, no, what the Republicans are is they're going to be cheap on the front end and stick it to you, the taxpayer, on the back end. Because, for example, in Lubbock County, you have the Lubbock County Hospital District, which means that if they have unreimbursed care that goes to UMC, that gets passed on to the taxpayers. And so if you ask people, look at your tax bill and notice, like right after the Lubbock Independent School District tax, the very next one is the Lubbock County Hospital tax. That for every kid that doesn't get immunized, that all you know, for one day in the NICU at UMC is $10,000. Okay, and so the shot, for example, every flu shot saves about $87 from people not getting sick. Every pneumonia shot among 65 and over saves $187 for people not getting sick. And to sit there and say, so it really is true what somebody said at the time, which is you can pay me now or you can pay me later. And so if we have better prenatal care, if we have and yet see, the trouble is they're kind of phantom numbers. In other words, if people don't get the flu, if they don't get pneumonia, and what they're doing is the bean counters come back and say, but it cost you this much. And you know, I think what you do is you stand up to that argument by saying that, in a sense, we're cheap. We want to save the money and put it where it goes. And I think that was such an interesting campaign because there wasn't really a Republican or Democrat. There was a citizens and health. And there really wasn't anybody on the other side of that issue except for Councilman Bean and Martin and some of these other guys. And they just got clobbered because people just said that's a bad idea, and particularly when you focused on the kids. And just saying, if you've ever heard a child with pertussis, whooping cough, that you don't ever want to have that happen, do you? And I think that personalizing that message and then saying we're actually the ones that are going to save you money. Because we're going to put these programs on the front end, and like we got a van when I was there that we got from a state grant from the state department. And my opinion is that anytime we have a public drawing, that van should be out there giving away free any kind of immunizations, vaccinations that you want, and not sit there and say, well, it's going to be $12 or $30 or because it helps us. And see, I think that people say, well, but that's just a program that costs. It's like, no, it saves. But see, I think that's an uphill battle because they'll say, but you're the one that just wants to waste all this money. And
well, that's why I was making the argument earlier about how guaranteed health care for everybody is fiscally responsible because you get the healthy bodies automatically enrolled. That they're essentially paying for those who are using medical services. Right now it's voluntary for people to get insurance, right?
And other areas as well, in law enforcement, if we don't put some money down now, we're going to pay for it much later. And education and health.
Well, it's like going to, what's your name, ma'am? I'm sorry?
Cheryl Jackson.
Cheryl, what Cheryl was mentioning, with the foster grant family, it may cost a little bit on the front end, whether it's just the $200, $400. The thing is that child that it comes back and says, I'm never coming back here because it worked for me, then now we save on whether they might go in a different route that's going to cost the state money. Right? And the thing is that we've invested in that. So it is a cost in the front end, but the long term, and that's what, when you have these fiscal conservatives saying that no, you're not even being fiscally conservative because you're penny wise but dollar foolish. Right? And that's what we're seeing from that other side. And they want to tout it as like, oh, look what we're doing. It's like, no, but at the back end, we're going to get the cost here.
Because these kids that we deal with, they're angry.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that you see on TV, it is, and I didn't know how bad it was until I got into it. And these are mostly black and Hispanic kids. Yeah, you don't see a lot of the white kids. They come from over Lubbock High and all the other, but they're just there for a day or two because their parents got enough money or whatever to get them back into their school. Some of them don't even supposed to be there, period.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them, because it's just a little minor thing that they over there for. But look at, they're missing school. You know, they need to be in school.
Yeah.
You know, because they were smoking marijuana, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's petty stuff.
Yeah.
Let's look at the big picture for
Yes, it
those
is.
kids, because they're angry because somebody let them down. And, you know, and not just the parents, the system. Because the parents was in the system. It's just a recyclable thing, you
Yes,
know.
ma'am.
Although, and here's another point about seniors. If you want a third rail that's about 5 years away, how many of the people in here that are older? I'm 61. Anybody older than me? Can you afford to pay $6,500 a month in long-term care? Okay, my parents are both out at Raider Ranch, and because Dad worked hard his life as a pediatrician, saved up money, they're out there, and it's $6,500 a month, and because they had long-term care insurance.
Yes.
Okay, so you ask your seniors in the crowd that, because we're aging, right? I know that for the vast majority of people over 55, they have about $30,000 in savings. Okay. And when you realize that, like when we sold my parents' house and they recognized like $150,000 from their house, sounds like a lot of money until you divide it by $6,500 a month. And see, so the trouble's going to be in about 5 to 10 years, we're going to age out. And so and what's going to happen at first is we're going to be like Walton's Mountain. At first you'll have several generations all crammed into one house because uncle or dad or sis can't afford to go into any kind of skilled nursing. But then those people are going to start breaking down. They're going to have such maladies, and they're going to be bedridden and have bed sores. And people are going to look to the government saying, we got to do something. And when I talked to Jody personally, I went and had coffee with him, and I told him, look, I said, I have all these pre-existing conditions. Before the Affordability Care Act, I couldn't get insurance. If you put pre-existings back in, I said, I'm not going to be able to afford insurance. And his response was, very articulately, he said he was sad to hear of my plight as the market corrected itself, which I guess meant try to die as quietly as you can because they can't afford it. But again, you look at seniors. I mean, people who pretty hardcore red blood Republicans, and you start talking to them about what are you going to do? And see, just even in this crowd, all of us are a little bit older. Can you afford? And so if you get sick, what, you don't move in with a kid, but what happens if that's not enough? And where do you go from there? And there is no answer.
Well, you're right. I don't think you have to be older. I mean, my grandmother suffers from dementia, and she's in an assisted living, environment, but it's paid for by Medicaid because she was a stay-at-home mom. Family values, that whole nine, and she did it. And now they want to slash Medicaid and Medicare. And what they want to tell my grandmother, who raised 3 girls, not on her own. She had my grandfather, but he was a migrant worker, so he would spend months in California, Arizona, Washington, and come back. But she did that. She stayed home and raised 3 women, 1 with a college degree, and so she did her part. And now you want to tell them, go what? Go die quietly and go away? But it's like she deserved that. She deserves to have that care. Even though she's suffering from dementia, she deserves to be, because my mom can't take care of her, the way she needs it. And neither can my aunt who lives there. So it's something that you don't have to be, to be in that cusp of having to be in that position of retiring, because it's like, I can't imagine my mom assuming the responsibility of caring for my grandmother who has dementia. My mom doesn't have the medical skill to take care of her, much less the resources.
And if you want to know how bad it is, that you brought it out, just visit some of these nursing homes, and you will see what's happening in there because of the money running out, and people don't have it. And some of those that's in these nursing homes is not getting the help that they need. They're being looked over, And
when you have a state of Texas that's like wanting not to expand Medicaid, for example, and you don't want to expand Medicaid, it's not just about helping those who are poor. It's about helping a lot of people with different unique circumstances, that the county and these types of hospitals use Medicaid grants to service people, regardless of their income. And that's what they don't understand. No, they want you to just basically, or as Jody told one of our supporters just recently, that's just a part of capitalism. I'm sorry,
You know what? Are you going to aim to be on the agriculture committee?
Yes, ma'am.
So, just saw one of your cards, it's got economy there as one of your basic areas of interest. Would you vote to keep the SNAP program?
Oh, gosh. Yes, ma'am.
Would you vote to support all these farmers around?
Yes, ma'am. I think, you know, and I told people across the district, I mean, our farmers and ranchers deal with something that most of us don't, and that's Mother Nature, and that's something bigger than us. So I think that we should have some insurances and some support for them in many ways, because it is fiber and food. It's very basic. I grew up in a farming community outside of Paso. My uncle's a farmer. We spoke to, I'm not sure we can mention the organization, but we spoke to cotton farmers. And they were upset that the Republican Congress was going after SNAP. And their quote was, it's low-hanging fruit. And they knew by going after SNAP, they were going to politicize a bill that had long never been a politicized bill. It had always been bipartisan. In other words, it was pretty much like the most for sure thing you can get passed, because everybody believes in food and fiber and helping one another to eat. And until this Congress, and until with my opponent, they chose to politicize SNAP, which the cotton farmer said that is not. They're more concerned about the trade war that this president is initiating than they are worried about SNAP, you know, like SNAP being some kind of.
He even used Bible quotes to support his opposition to SNAP.
Yes, and
He
that's.
said that, you know, we're gonna go back to commodities. And a lot of people don't know about commodities. I was grew up with commodities, which I love. And now, you know, I'm a senior citizen, proud to be one. And over in the apartment complex that we live in now, every month we get a food box, you know, for the seniors.
Yeah.
And when people complain about it, I said, honey, this is a blessing. I mean, for me, I didn't ever think I would even get this far to even see something like that or to be able to benefit from it. And I go to Silver Star, which is a health center, and I love it. And I get all my medical, which is needed. And as we get older, our condition, our body shuts down. It's doing all kinds of funny style stuff. And, you know, and I'm so glad to be in the program because I don't have to worry about going to the doctor, my medication. That's a big relief off of a person.
Yeah, but your president is getting ready to cut.
You shouldn't have to be living your retirement worrying about, do I buy food or do I buy medicine? Do I buy food or do I go to the doctor? You shouldn't be put in that position. And you know, you've given us, you know, all, you know, whether you worked outside the home or inside the home, and I agree with you. We shouldn't be taking that away. But my opponent and his colleagues on the other side seem like they just want to attack that and cut that. Like they want you to just go quietly into the sunset, pretty much. And I think that's not fair. And like I said, it's not something that we need to focus on. Yes, ma'am.
Well, you have a big task ahead of you in order to make people stop believing that the market can take care of everything. That's been a story for a long time.
You know, it is a big task, and it's one of the, you know, I would say it's the effectiveness of the other side's messaging, you know. But I will tell you this: yes, I'm not naive. I know it's going to be challenging. How challenging? I have no idea. We're not there right now. But if you look at the trend of what we're seeing, with not only with Democrats winning in places where Trump carried in double digits, but what you're also seeing is that the number of candidates that are running for office that have never held public office and are running the same kind of situation we are. So we're going to have, I think, more like-minded people in Congress to where we can actually push for these types of programs or push this type of agenda that's going to be helpful to everybody. Now, that's hopeful. I don't think that's naive. I think that's just hopeful. But again, I think that one way, and Brian was alluding to this, and I alluded to it earlier, I think if we use language that they can understand, if we have guaranteed health care, If you want to argue if it's moral or not or whatever, that's not here or there. It's fiscally responsible for us to do it. If you're worried about the deficit blowing up, which we all should because the Republicans just keep adding to it, then guaranteeing health care is going to help. The Affordable Care Act did that until they started stripping it. So now we're looking at deficits even growing higher and higher, but if we have guaranteed health care, we actually can affect not only giving people the peace of mind that they will have what's rightfully theirs, which is decent health care, so that they can work and live the way they want to, and it helps our economy because, again, enrolling healthy bodies automatically. So I think that that's one way of using that and just putting it on its head. Now again, all I can be is, we're going to try.
Well, I hope you're finding it works with people.
I'm sorry?
I hope you're finding that it works with people to tell them that the market can't, there are a whole lot of things the market can't take care of.
Yeah.
And it makes me really anxious and angry.
And it is.
Yes.
And I think that healthcare, the reason that healthcare is one of the biggest issues that keeps coming up is that people are seeing that what the Republican Congress wants to do is make it worse. And we've seen it already. The Republicans have tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act over 50, 60 times. And they failed. Why? Because when they threatened to do it, their constituents who voted for it said, you absolutely better not touch that. Or what are you doing to make it better? Because you don't even have a replacement plan. And then when they came up with Trump Care, Jody had a Facebook Live.
Yeah.
You should have seen the responses that he was getting. Or people are like, this is absolute backwards. And it was so bad. You can't find it on his Facebook page anymore. And he was there trying to defend it. So the thing is that I think that people are hearing it. But now, yes, there is a cultural part here that socialized medicine or whatever they want to call it that keeps people a little apprehensive. But I think that's where we have to just keep pushing with the fact is like, here's the facts of it. This is what we're talking about. But it is going to be there is cultural resistance. And that doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. There is a bit of cultural resistance that quite frankly we need to overcome. And I think it's getting there because like I said, even with the number of times that the Republicans have tried to repeal it, they haven't. And they failed over 50 times.
Well, probably nothing is better than what you're doing, is go meet people face to face and tell them.
Yes, ma'am.
Because maybe they're not getting it anymore. They're certainly not getting it in the Avalanche.
Yeah, we don't want, they're not getting it from Fox News either, so. Yes, ma'am.
I want to share something. I work in a middle school, Atkins Middle School here in Lubbock. And we have, Texas has the STAR test. And I don't know, is it national that states have to have, like, accountability?
Mostly when it comes to matching funds from the federal level, the state really organizes that.
And so that's
does that, yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So, because of the STAR test, are we, and this goes to what I'm alluding to is gun violence in the school, because I'm scared to go to school. Now, our school's locked down now, we have to have...
We have campus carry attack, our students are packing.
Right, and unfortunately, hopefully they won't in our public schools, but I think we're heading that way, unfortunately, but it's scary that our kids should be scared to go to school these days, and we are. If somebody's new and different in the hall, you don't know. But because of STAR testing, our counselors who are supposed to be providing mental health to our students spend half a year giving the STAR test, and they are not allowed to do they don't do counseling for half a year because they have to, because everything depends on STAR scores.
Well, even our teachers aren't allowed to teach on 8 months out of the 9.
No, because it's all about the STAR test.
Yes.
And so it all circles back though then to all this mental health, and there's things going on, and I know guns is a whole big thing and I don't bring up a lot, but just for awareness, I don't know.
There's a couple of things, and I'm certainly willing to address that because me, at the university level, I tell people I can't stand standardized testing because I see the consequence of that. So when my first years come into my class, they can't think for themselves. They have almost zero critical thinking skills because what they always come to me and say, so how many questions are going to be on the exam? They take the STAR strategy or the standardized test strategy, like how many questions, they start doing the math about what I need to pass, they start asking, what is it I'm going to need to know for the test? And I'm like, I'm talking about Watergate. Like there's bigger questions and concerns you should have than saying, who is John Dean? Like I'm in history, And I don't care if you remember the name, but what you need to understand is that where you have the president, you know, obstructing justice and breaking the law and covering it up, like think about that, what that means. And not just because of what's happening today with the Trump administration, that's a whole other bag of marshmallows. But just thinking about critically thinking, you know, why, who, what, where, when. They can't, because all they've been taught for their times in high school especially is how to prepare for a standardized test. And when you, like I will never forget this one lecture, I'll give you this one quick anecdote. We're talking about lynching in Texas. And I had a picture of Jesse Washington, 14-year-old boy who was hung in the middle of the day, burned to death in the middle of Waco, Texas. With 10,000 people watching, including the mayor and the sheriff. And I asked the students, what's your response to this? Nothing. Nothing. And then there's like, what do we need to know about for the exam on this? I said, are you kidding me? There's a 14-year-old boy being burned to death. I'm not even getting to the mutilization that happened before he got to that stuff. And then but it's like they're just conditioned in a way that's like, I'm more concerned about getting my 4.0. And these were honor students. No offense to the honors college, right? I got so frustrated, I said, I'm not teaching honor students anymore. It's like, you guys are all worried about what's going to be on the exam so you can get your 4.0 and walk away. You're not even thinking critically. Yes, ma'am, sorry. I got a little rant there.
Okay, I'm a caregiver. I work with a healthcare place. And the little lady I work for, okay, they took hours away from her. And she's like, what, she's 89 now. Okay, we were doing 19 and a half hours. Now they gave her only 15. And she keeps asking for more hours, and they keep saying, no, we cannot give them back to you.
But they get no money.
So she only can do the 15, but the lady really needed, I've been with her nearly a year now. Well, it is a year this month. And she really needs it now because she's getting worse. You know, they don't let nobody go in the morning time. My hours are from 11 to 2, you know.
And why did they do that? Did they do that because the budgets were cut? Or
it's the VA.
Not?
So she can't get any more hours, but she calls them all the time and she still cry about it, but they say, that's it, we can't give you no more. And they took the 19 and a half away and gave her 15.
No, I mean, we've heard from a few veterans that are still waiting. Where's the changes? And my opponent's on the subcommittee for the VA, for the Veteran Affairs. He's more worried about getting unions out of there than he is worried about actually.
The main thing, he brags about taking care of the VA and his can't run the union.
Even though the best run VAs actually had a strong union, and then he still dismissed that and said, well, we're not going to accept that as it. But yeah, that's what he's most proud of, is just dismantling the union and the VA rather than actually giving care to the veterans. So that's another one. That's another thing that keeps getting slashed or completely disorganized.
Well, they need to make it private. They want to bring it into
and a lot of veterans are very concerned about that.
Yeah.
They're not happy about that. Yeah. I don't want to keep you all too long. Are there any questions, comments, or like I said, please, if you haven't already, sign in. We do a weekly newsletter letting you all know what we've been doing, what we're planning on doing. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you there's ways to donate there. $5, $10, $2,700 individually you can do. But it does help us because like I tell people, $30 gets us to Abilene and back. It gets us to Muleshoe and back, gets us to Brownfield, and that's essentially all we need. We go cheap. I get these guys a payday and say, call that dinner, and we're good, you know? Or we go to the buffets, you know? Just pile it on. But thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it, and please, thank you. Help yourself to some goodies here on the table. I think we're selling the t-shirts, but